Hello, my name is Andy Santana, and I'm going to be talking about adware in the computer world and how it affects users. Here are some examples of adware that are visible. Adware normally, when it affects a machine, you usually get a bunch of pop-ups and things and annoyances that might kind of downplay the experience when using a computer either for the first time or for something important. Some of the examples you'll see look like installers. They actually even look like messages that might be of a legitimate program. In some cases, adware is actually attached to a legitimate program and can get on your machine due to the fact that that program has come in an agreement with that person or adware creator on attaching that program to their package. Now, people ask, what is adware? Adware is a form of software that actually is downloaded and displays ads that are unwanted or uncalled for, and it's utilized for marketing purposes and sometimes even for just data collection. With adware, basically, when it comes onto your machine, you're unaware. Normally, it doesn't ask for your consent or even ask if you've given it permission to take that information. It just monitors your usage and then goes ahead and starts shooting ads in your direction that you might be interested in, similar to what we use now. What's used now, like ad tracking. Adware is given to is usually what's given to the name given to programs that don't are uncalled for or advertisement that you are not looking for in a sense. And in most cases, it's usually part of a package, like I've said previously. Now, signs that you have adware on your machine are kind of visible. Some are, some are not. But two main ways in which adware can get on your machine is either through freeware or shareware that it's called, or through an infected website. Now, what freeware is normally an application that is free, that is legitimate, but when you download it, it generates a ridiculous amount of advertisement and sometimes even puts toolbars that are unnecessary for you to use. This is done in order for you to be able to use or to get the ads you're looking for, or for it to tailor it for you as a user. Now, freeware and shareware are notorious for this because people ask, how is this application free? They have to make some revenue in order to produce the software. So a lot of cases, these companies, they go ahead and they get these adware makers, and they take money from them to add the adware into their program, and they kind of sneak it into their end user agreement that you sign at the end, saying you agree. And in some cases, people unknowingly download these items, and sometimes just for the lack of reading that very, very long form, end up downloading the application and putting it on their machine unknowingly. Now, for infected websites, those are just websites most people visit that you probably notice that when you're trying to watch stuff for free that you shouldn't be watching. An example would be like Stream TV, shows that are not supposed to be available online for viewing unless you have a cable service or a cable service provider or even an antenna, but yet people go online, view them illegally, and see those things illegally. Also, another one is movie viewing, like BitTorrenting, things of that nature. Those type of websites can cause these type of problems to continuously come up. You'll get pop-ups all over the page, and sometimes you won't even, it's so many pop-ups that you're not even able to view the content on the website, and it becomes very difficult for you to be able to use it. Now, here's an example of a freeware or shareware application. It looks very similar to what a web browser would look like. They called it Infonaut, and basically it says that if you download this Infonaut, you'll pass by your results, search results, and you'll be able to use it as a search engine much better than anything you've used before. And this is not true. This is false. This is how they tracked you into downloading adware that can actually be quite malicious to your computer and sometimes even steal sensitive information. Here's an example of an infected website. You try to click on something or view something, all of a sudden you get all these pop-ups saying you need tech support or your computer's running very slow, please call this number. And in most cases, this type of adware can be quite malicious in the sense of it can, if you were to call one of those numbers, they would ask you for information, and if you are unaware or unknowing of that being a false customer support, you might be giving sensitive information and possibly become a victim of identity theft, which is quite common right now, especially in Mac machines where adware has become quite rampant, and so as has in Windows machines. Adware programs on the web. These are programs that are adware that can be downloaded from websites and from even browsers and things of that nature. Smart Browser is one that actually has been recognized and is actually well known for causing pop-ups to come up, but not just any pop-ups actually. It brings up pornographic related pop-ups. Things that you don't want to see, that are embarrassing, or sometimes even things that are very, very inappropriate. Spy Trooper, on the other hand, is actually a malware that gets on your machine and it collects data. The only catch to it is that it's actually very, very difficult to remove. Once it gets on your machine, it gets into the registry of your computer. And the only way to remove it is manually going in there and removing the actual files. But what's difficult about it is that to find out what the name of the file is, or even if that file is a legitimate or non-legitimate file. The next one is called Desk Aids, which is a service file, and this actually takes control of your web browser. You guys might be a little familiar with this, where it puts a bunch of search toolbars and a bunch of buttons and things that you actually don't need. All this stuff will clutter your entire web browser, and sometimes you get so many ads, so many pop-ups, so many things that it becomes almost impossible to utilize your web browser until it no longer works. These three are the most common adwares that you'll see out in the field, and they're so malicious that sometimes people confuse them for viruses or worms because they perform like them. The only thing is that most of the adware is not invasive in that way where it will spread, but can definitely make your surfing experience much worse or unpleasant. Now, how can you remove adware? Well, there are about two ways to remove adware. One is manually, and the other is actually getting an adware removal tool. Manually moving adware is quite difficult sometimes because it requires additional work, but can also be very simple if you have a Windows machine. A way you could use adware removal is by going into your Add Programs or Add Remove Programs option in your control panel and going ahead and just finding the program and removing it. It makes it very simple for you to be able to go in there and just remove the application you don't want. Now, on a Mac, it's quite different. You actually have to go to your library and actually search for these application support files. Once you go in there and you find these files, removing them isn't just enough. You actually have to go ahead and locate these other files in other places, which would be like launch agents and launch daemons. Sometimes malware can go so deep, or adware can get so deep into your system that it might require a reinstall. Something similar also to a Windows machine. Now, adware removal programs, on the other hand, are actually much more efficient in finding adware. For Windows machine, there are many out there. One that is personally my favorite, which you'll see in a few minutes, is called Malwarebytes. Now, adware removal programs tend to usually go on and you have to run them a couple times usually to get the adware you're looking for removed, because in some cases when running in normal view, the adware might be able to have layers, and in that sense the only way to remove it permanently is by running the adware removal tool multiple times, and that'll accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Now, um, here's my personal favorite adware removal tool. It's called Malwarebytes Anti-Malware for Mac and for PC. This actually scans your entire computer for any malware. In most cases, what it does find is adware. This will locate adware, go ahead and tell you where it is, remove it, and then it also will restart your machine. Not only that, but it can also educate you on how to be aware where there's malware or how to even avoid getting malware on your machine or even adware. It's a very, very useful tool. Now, people always ask, how do I prevent from catching adware or even malware on my machine? Well, it's actually a couple of simple rules. Just make sure your system's always up to date. The reason there's updates for computers are not to make people's lives more difficult. It's so that you have the latest version and the latest security patches. So if something has infiltrated that older version, you're not affected by it. Most people in this case, they tend to avoid updates because it breaks their devices or makes it harder for them to utilize the device. But the way that technology moves, it's almost always going to be a learning curve. It's always better to upgrade than to not. Another option is to make sure you adjust your browser settings. Some people have their security zones very low. I don't recommend that because when you have such a low security, you're leaving the door open for possible infiltration. Make sure your internet zones are usually in the medium zone, or you have something making sure adjusting and blocking traffic that is unwanted. Next, you want to make sure you install a firewall. Not having a firewall is very, very dangerous because that means you open a door to anyone to come in. You've left all your ports open and anyone can just walk in and do whatever they need to do and walk out. Now, with a firewall, you're filtering what data comes in and what data comes out, and what's allowed and what's not allowed. This is great, especially if you have a network in your home or have a network in a business or company. You definitely don't want people being in your network and seeing what you're doing. In that point, there can always be identity theft. There can be other layers of malicious activity that can definitely affect you. Know what you're installing. Always know what you're installing. You never want to be in a situation where you install something and you have no idea what you're installing. You're only doing it because you want to see a content and the content tells you you must install it to see it. That is not a good practice, especially if you're trying to watch things online or stream videos, things of that nature. They always tell you your Adobe Flash is out of date or it's not up to date, and in most cases, those are almost always malicious adware softwares. You always want to make sure what you're looking at is legitimate. You're 100% sure it comes from a good source. It has proper certificates, and it's something that you can trust. The last but not least, you want to watch what you click. Just clicking on OK doesn't always mean you're OK. You want to make sure that you are closing out the windows and not clicking on the buttons on the windows. Most of those buttons are implanted there so that when they're clicked, they activate either more pop-ups or will actually launch or install the adware you're trying to avoid. And that's not good at all. You don't want to end up in a situation where you put adware on your machine and you're unaware, and now you noticed that your web browser is acting differently. That can definitely put a damper on many things on your computer and can definitely cause you headaches that are unnecessary. So that is a brief introduction to adware and how it is in our world right now. Definitely you want to make sure that you're always secure and that you're always protecting yourself with the proper tools and prevention steps to make sure adware doesn't get on your machine. Over the years, adware has evolved so much and has affected our daily living that it's becoming a norm. It's actually more people see adware than they do more viruses and worms on a daily basis. It's become such an active thing that it's becoming harder to control. How do you control advertisement, especially when the advertising field is not growing as much as it used to? So, thank you very much for listening and have a great day.